name is Emily. I'm 27 now, but when I was 8, we lived in a narrow house with a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. Even today, I dream of that hallway. I can smell the dust and hear the boards sigh beneath my feet. Mom worked nights, so most evenings it was just Dad and me. He wasn't cruel in the way people imagine, no shouting fits, no fists. His anger was quiet and careful, which somehow made it worse. If I left toys on the floor or forgot to finish my homework, he'd give a small smile that meant I'd learn a lesson later. At the very end of that hallway was a door no one mentioned. It had peeling gray paint and a lock so old the keyhole looked like a black eye. Dad called it the storage room. "Don't go in there," he'd say. "It isn't safe." But I never saw him put anything inside. One winter evening, he told me I'd broken his favorite mug. I hadn't, but I knew better than to argue. "You need to understand consequences," he said softly, and took me by the wrist. He led me down the long hall, each step heavier than the last. When we stopped at the gray door, my stomach turned to ice. The hinges shrieked as he pushed it open. Inside, the air felt colder than outside in January. The single bare bulb swung slightly, though no breeze stirred. "Sit," he said, pointing to a stool. "Think about respect." Then he locked the door from the outside. The room smelled of damp wood and something metallic, like rust or blood. At first I heard only the ticking of the bulb as it swayed. Then came a faint scraping, like fingernails along the walls. I pressed my palms to my ears, but it grew louder. "Skirk, skirk," I whispered to myself. "It's rats, just rats." But when I glanced at the far corner, I saw a shape, small, crouched. 2 pinpoints of pale light blinked back at me. I tried to scream, but only a dry rasp escaped. The figure crept closer, its outline thin and jerky, like a marionette pulled by broken strings. It stopped a few feet away. I could hear it breathing, slow, wet breaths. Then it spoke, a whisper that sounded like a dozen voices at once. "Why does he keep you here?" I froze. My own breathing thundered in my ears. "We were here first," it hissed. "We stayed quiet. But you can help us." The lights flickered. Shadows multiplied across the walls, stretching long arms toward me. I squeezed my eyes shut. When the door finally opened, Dad's face appeared, calm as always. "Lesson learned?" he asked. I nodded, too scared to do anything else. Behind him, the corner of the room was empty, just cracked plaster. After that night, the whispers followed me. If I walked the hall alone, I'd hear faint tapping behind the gray door. Sometimes, while brushing my teeth, I'd catch a reflection in the mirror that wasn't mine, just a pale outline watching. A month later, Mom came home early and found me trembling in the living room. I begged her not to let Dad lock me in again. Her face went white. "What room?" she asked. I told her everything, the stool, the voices, the thing in the corner. She stormed down the hallway and tried the knob. It turned easily. When she pushed the door open, we both stared. The room was gone. Where the door should have led was solid wall, painted the same dull beige as the rest of the hall. No hinges, no keyhole, just drywall. Dad came home moments later. Mom demanded answers. He tilted his head, smiling faintly. "There's never been a door there," he said. We moved out 2 weeks later. Mom never explained. Dad never apologized. They divorced soon after. Years passed. I tried to convince myself I'd imagined everything. But some nights, when the house is silent, I still wake to a sound that freezes me mid-breath. Skirk, skirk. like nails on old wood, somewhere just beyond the wall. And sometimes, if I listen long enough, a chorus of whispers seeps through the darkness. You can help us. My name is Mark, and I'm 10 years old. I used to think darkness was the worst thing in the world until I learned people can be worse. Mom hardly spoke. Her eyes held a soft light when they found me, but if Dad was nearby, she looked away as if even eye contact might bring his anger. Dad didn't need much to start screaming. His voice could shake the house, rattle every nail in the walls. No locked door could shut it out. We had a basement, old concrete walls, slick with moisture. The smell of iron and rot hung there like a permanent fog. Dad called it the lesson room. The first time he dragged me down, it was because I'd spilled tea. "You need to learn to be careful," he hissed, yanking me down the creaking steps. The door slammed. A heavy bolt scraped into place. The single bulb above me flickered once and died. At first, I counted heartbeats to keep from screaming. Drip. 3 seconds. Drip. The air was wet and cold, and soon the silence wasn't silence at all. Something scratched faintly in the walls. I told myself it was mice, but sometimes it sounded like breathing, slow, deliberate, just behind me. Fear changed over time. I stopped hoping Dad would open the door quickly. Instead, I dreaded that he might never come back, that he'd forget me on purpose. When the bolt finally slid, my heart jumped so hard it hurt. Mom sometimes slipped me food when Dad was at work, her hand trembling as she whispered, "Don't tell him." I wanted to yell, to let Dad hear everything and end it, one way or another. But I stayed quiet. Quiet was safer. One evening, his boots thudded home early. I heard the front door slam and the smack of a hand across Mom's face. Then his heavy tread on the basement steps. He carried a flashlight, its beam slicing the dark. "Think you're special, sitting here like a stone," he growled. I said nothing. "Speak!" He raised his fist, and I flinched. The blow never came. He laughed, a low, cold sound. A real man doesn't cry, remember that. Then he left me there for the entire night. It was so cold I couldn't feel my fingers. I must have fallen asleep because a whisper woke me. Mark. A child's voice. Not Mom's. Not Dad's. I sat bolt upright near the far wall where rusted shelves leaned. Something pale shifted in the dark, a small figure almost glowing. I squeezed my eyes shut and counted heartbeats until the image faded. When I opened them, nothing but dripping water. From that night on, the whisper came whenever Dad locked me down there. At first, I thought I was cracking, but the voice grew clearer. "Don't be afraid. We're with you." The word pulsed in the dark, warm and wrong. I began to wait for them. The voices never hurt me. Sometimes the air beside me warmed as though someone sat at my shoulder. One night, Dad passed out drunk upstairs. The whisper pressed against my ear. Time to go. I rose. The basement door unlocked. The bolt slid free. I crept up, heart pounding so loud it filled my skull. The hallway smelled of liquor and burnt food. In the bedroom, Dad snored, mouth slack. Mom sat rigid on the mattress, staring at the wall. "Mom," I whispered. She flinched, but didn't turn. "Come with me." She didn't answer. A single tear tracked down her cheek. "Come," the voices urged. Barefoot, I stepped outside. The night air cut like a blade, but tasted of freedom. I followed the unseen whispers across the yard and through the dark trees until headlights bloomed on the distant highway. Police found me at dawn. I told them everything. They nodded, faces tight, but their eyes carried doubt. They took Mom to the hospital. They arrested Dad. Now I live with a foster family. Their house is warm. The nights are quiet. But sometimes, when everything is still and the dark presses close, I hear the whisper again. We are with you. I no longer fear it. Whatever they are, they found me when no one else would. My name is Daniel. I'm 30 now, but when I was 9, we lived in a house with an attic that should never have been opened. It was an old Victorian place on a quiet street. From the outside, it looked charming. White paint, wraparound porch, a big oak tree out front. Inside, though, the air always felt a little too still, like the walls were holding their breath. Dad worked long shifts at the mill and came home smelling of sweat and iron. Mom stayed distant, drifting from room to room like she was sleepwalking. They argued in whispers that ended in sharp silences. I learned early that silence meant trouble. At the top of the second-floor hallway was a narrow door, barely wider than a closet. Mom called it just the attic. She never looked at it when she said that. "Stay out of there," she warned. "The floorboards are weak." But late at night, I'd hear it creak. Not the usual house noises. This was a slow, deliberate groan, like someone easing the door open 1 inch at a time. One Saturday afternoon, Dad left for work, and Mom was in the garden. I stood at the foot of the stairs, staring at the attic door. The brass knob seemed to glint even in the dim hallway light. I remember thinking, just one peek. The door opened without a sound. Inside, a steep wooden ladder led into darkness. Cold air drifted down, carrying a smell like damp earth and something sweet, almost rotten. I climbed halfway before the light from below barely reached me. That's when I heard it. A faint humming, like a child singing off-key. The melody twisted in ways that made my stomach tighten. "Hello?" I whispered. The humming stopped. Then a voice, soft, almost playful, replied, "Come up and see." Every instinct screamed to go back, but something pulled me upward. I climbed into the attic. The space was bigger than I expected, the beams lost in shadow. Old trunks and furniture sat beneath dusty sheets. In the far corner stood a rocking chair, slowly moving though no one sat in it. I stepped closer. The chair stopped. A shape unfolded from the darkness, a small figure, child-sized, skin the color of candle wax. Its eyes were wide and black, reflecting no light. "You found me," it said, its mouth barely moving. I stumbled back, heart pounding. "Who are you?" I asked. It tilted its head. "I'm waiting for you to stay." The air grew colder, thick with a smell like wet soil after a storm. Behind me, the attic hatch slammed shut. Total darkness. I bolted for the ladder, but something thin and icy brushed my ankle. I kicked free and scrambled down, landing hard on the hallway floor. When I looked up, the attic door was closed tight, as if it had never opened. That night I dreamed of the humming. When I woke, my bed sheets smelled faintly of damp earth. Over the next weeks, strange things started happening. Toys I hadn't touched in years appeared on my pillow. Small, muddy footprints dotted the hallway. When I told Mom, she looked pale but said, "Old houses settle. You're imagining things." One evening, Dad came home angry, his temper already sharpened by long hours. I accidentally dropped a plate at dinner. He slammed his fist on the table. "Enough," he barked. "Go to your room." I obeyed, but as I lay in bed, I heard the attic door creak open. The humming drifted down the hall, louder than before. "Daniel," the voice called. "Come back. We'll keep you safe." The door to my room eased open on its own. Cold air poured in, and the smell of earth filled the space. A pale hand gripped the frame, small, childlike, but with nails dark and cracked. I dove under the covers, shaking. The humming turned to a low chant, words I couldn't understand. Then, silence. Morning sunlight finally pushed me to peek out. The door was closed. A trail of damp soil led from the hallway to my bed. A week later, we moved out. Mom said the house was too drafty, but her eyes avoided mine. Dad never spoke of it. Years passed. I tried to bury the memory. But even now, when the night is perfectly still, I hear that off-key humming in the distance. Sometimes, if I stay very quiet, I smell damp earth and something sweet, like rotting flowers. And every now and then, I dream of the narrow door slowly swinging open, a voice whispering from the dark attic, "Come back, it's your turn to stay."